In part 5 of section 2, we're going to be looking at a graphical tool called the vertical line test. Now, example 2.6 is not going to involve graphs, it's going to involve equations, because I wanted to remind us of what we did in section 1. It says here, does the equation define y as a function of x? And that was something that we looked at with example 1.19 in the first section. And we'll look at the first equation. It says here y minus x equals -4. So my first thought is to solve this equation to get y equals. So we would have y equals x minus 4. And that equation represents an infinite number of ordered pair, but I can't see them whenever I'm just staring at the equation. So that's why we use a table to help us to be able to visualize and actually see on paper what some of these ordered pair will look like. So we're going to have x for the first column, y for the second column, and we're just going to choose a few values. Again, you can go back and look at example 1.19 and you can see this worked out there as well. And if I was to pick these three values, substitute them into the equation, I would get that 1 maps to -3, 2 maps to -2, and that 3 maps to -1. So with 3 mapping to -1, 2 mapping to -2, and 1 mapping to -3, I'm finding that every x value only maps to one y value. And that's what the function definition requires. It requires that every y value be unique as it's paired with an x. So every x has to have a unique y value. And this was the way that we determined that this is going to be used to represent a function. Now, when we talked about the equation in part B, x squared plus y squared equals 9, when we solved this for y, we eventually got to this. Y equals plus or minus the square root of 9 minus x squared. And then when I started thinking about a table, I didn't really have to get very far. I can just plug in 0. And if I plug in 0, I'm going to end up with two answers, +3 or -3. So in other words, 0 is mapping to the +3, and it's also mapping to a -3. So that one x value does not have a unique y value. And this was the way that we were able to determine that this is not a function. And when you're dealing with just the equation, then this is the process that you'll have to go through. But this part is really going to be now introducing the ability to look at a graph and to be able to determine if it's a function without having to go through making a table and even in the absence of an equation altogether.